Welcome back, everybody. We are now going to JJ. We're still here with JJ from ASUS. We went through all of our board lineups, all of our feature discussions. Now we're actually going to demonstrate some of these features of the new ASUS Z77 series of motherboards. There's quite a lot of features. We're not going to be able to touch on all of them on the live stream. We're going to do some on the recorded section only as well. But I tell you what do you want to start out with talking about one of the features that we spoke about earlier?
I think there's been a lot of questions about USB 3. So let's start with USB 3 boost. Okay. So I think first off, it's important to kind of discuss a little bit what we have here in configuration parameters, because I think some people are confused as relative to how does this all work, what are the requirements for USB 3 boost, and how that might work depending on the controllers and things like that, right? So as we've talked about in the past before, for the Intel controller, right, we have bot protocol support, and then we have the turbo protocol support, or SCSI support, that we offer with an AI suite.
Are those two the same thing? You guys are just calling it turbo in software?
Yeah, exactly. We just call it turbo because we think it's a little bit easier to understand than SCSI, which a lot of people might not understand the SCSI protocol operation mode. So that won't require any type of specialized device. Any standard, essentially, USB 3 device, or even a USB 2 device, definitely ones that are flash-based or more susceptible, like flash drives and things like that, is going to have that option to be able to work in the bot mode or to work in the turbo mode. So no differential there. For the AS Media controller, same thing. It can support the bot protocol mode, the turbo protocol mode, but it also supports that new UASP mode. So for this pretense of this demo here, we've got Thermaltake's brand new BlackX 5G enclosure. This enclosure has been updated to support the controller on a physical level and on a firmware level to enable UASP support. So that device that you connect to that port does have to essentially have a handshake that sends that information over. It says, hey, I'm UASP compliant and I work on a UASP level.
So not all USB 3 devices are going to support that right now. And in fact, we're probably just starting to get into
right
that.
Now, yeah, we're just in the infancy of it, and we'll definitely see it to continue to propagate because Windows 8 has certified that UASP is native within the operating system. The cool part about what that means, though, is fundamentally that even our AI Suite 2 software, I love it, but let's say for whatever reason you don't want to use it and all you care about is USB 3 boost, you'll inherently get the UASP operation natively if you're running Windows 8 because the driver model is built into the OS on a low level. So that's a cool plus. So we've got the drive here. We've got Corsair Force GT SSD hooked up. We're going to go ahead and show what the interface looks like and how it switches between the two modes.
Show the software and how we enable it.
Yeah, and then, of course, we're going to show the performance in terms of what we're looking at. So it'd be very simple. So first and foremost, we've gone ahead and first connected to the AS Media controller right now. So we're just going to go ahead and open this guy up. AI Suite 2. Go toward the Zoom.
We're just going to enable the magnifier here because of that way we can see close up what we're looking at here since we're doing live streaming stuff.
So we can see here's the AI Suite interface, and you can see already that we've designated the mode to be in UASP mode of operation. So if we go ahead and click on it, it goes ahead and lets us know the name of our device, and we see that we have two buttons. One is normal mode, so that's that bot protocol operating mode, and then we have the UASP operating mode. And that's it. You're good to go. So all you would have to do is just click that button to keep it in UASP.
Now, if you had a non-USP compliant device, will this be normal and turbo?
Correct.
So if you have UASP, you don't have the option of normal turbo or UASP.
Yeah, and
it's just normal and UASP.
Yeah. If we can fit maybe this drive in here. Let's see if we can fit this drive in.
Doing stuff live, everybody.
Yeah. You can see here now it's gone ahead and detected this other drive. So if we go ahead and click on it, you can see that this drive actually does not support UASP. So we have normal and turbo. But the firmware did handshake correctly to auto-sync it into turbo mode.
Now, is that done by like testing on your end?
Yes, we do work with validation partners, and we try.
So this don't necessarily automatically handshake.
Yeah,
a random USB drive.
Yeah, I would say it's probably going to be about maybe 65 to 75% of cases. It should auto negotiate and shift automatically into turbo mode. But some firmware from some vendors and some controllers sometimes act a little bit off, so you might have to manually enable in that mode. The cool part about that, though, is let's say go ahead and I'm done working with my device, and I want to go ahead and remove it. So we're just going to go ahead. Normally, I always advise, sorry about that. I always recommend do safe removal so that you minimize corrupting the partition table. But I know you guys probably out there love to live wild and fast, so you guys just yank it. So we're going to go ahead and just remove it. And of course, the drive's now disconnected. But if we go ahead and plug it back in, it stores special information to keep the drive retained in that mode of operation.
So it will stay, if you change it, it will stay in that. So if we change this to normal, unplugged it and plugged it back in, would it come back at normal?
Actually, if it will keep re-switching back into that
to the
USB
higher speed, higher performance mode. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
So we've tried to make it pretty foolproof.
Okay.
So that is a nice benefit in that regard. So that shows you how that works. And we'd pretty much see the same thing. If we shift it over the Intel, there's not going to be any difference. The only difference is even though this is a UASP compliant device, when I plug it into the Intel port, I'm only going to see the normal and the turbo as opposed to normal and UASP.
Okay.
Okay. So let's go ahead and minimize this here. And we're going to take a look at some performance metrics. So the first part is just general kind of USB 3 performance, right? Because, of course, everybody's going to have USB 3.
Normal stuff? Okay.
Bought normal. So let's go ahead and just go from a very baseline perspective, because I know that there's always a lot of questions where I think there's a perceived quality level, performance level to the add-in controllers that get put on the board. But actually, from a bot standpoint, the performance is pretty close to each other in reality. So let's go ahead and take a look at the AS Media here in bot mode.
Okay.
And then we have the Intel in bot mode. Okay. So let's go ahead and...
might have to undo magnifier to
we're
half and half.
Yeah, we're going to have to drop this out here. Okay, so here we've got the AS Media in bot mode. We've got Intel and bot mode. Okay. And
if we zoom in on these, can we zoom in on these pictures just a little bit? Just with the mouse cursor is fine.
Let's go ahead and actual size it. So we can see that actually there's not too much of a delta here.
The left-hand side is Intel?
Is the Intel, which is going to perform a little bit faster because, of course, we have the native link to the PCH.
Okay.
But you can see that we're not really looking at that huge of a discrepancy between the two, right? I mean, this is 225, 245, 172, 173. Q depth performance, which is almost going to always be limited because bot protocol doesn't really support heavy Q depths. Actually, it doesn't support it at all and doesn't support multiple reads and writes. But we can see that just from a sheer bot protocol mode, everything's pretty similar. No big changes. Okay, but great performance otherwise.
Okay.
But now what we want to look at is what happens when we start to change things up. Let's say if we run things in like turbo mode or UASP modes, and let's see where our performance gains are at. So on the first level, let's go ahead and take a look at the really high level. So we're going to go ahead and take a look here at Intel, okay, in turbo mode. So give me one moment here.
Looking for SCSI Force GT?
Yeah, that should be, yes, that should be fine. Okay. And is that visible? Do we need to try to magnify that?
I'd zoom in a little bit. Just use the scroll wheel should be good.
Okay.
It'll give us something.
A little bit fuzzy. Is that okay there?
A little bit more. A little more.
It's going to get a little bit fuzzy.
That's all right. It'll be okay.
Okay. So we can see here, in total, guys, at the top end, we're seeing about 353 to 354, about 350 in that range, okay, on the top end for write. And for read, we can see that we've gotten very good performance, all the way up to about 429, right? Mm-hmm. So this is really nice. That's a huge uptick if we were seeing before in comparison, right? Where actually if we were to just check the standard performance, we're not even over 300 megabytes. So actually...
This is going from normal to turbo.
Correctly. Normal,
on the Intel controller.
On the Intel controller.
Gotcha.
So if we check that here, apples to apples here with the turbo, non-turbo, excuse me, you can see right here, we've got 278 and then 269. So this is a pretty big increase. Same exact system, same exact enclosure, high-speed storage device, and we've got a really big uptick in terms of the turbo performance.
Okay.
Now, one interesting thing that we've talked about is that we have some technology on the board and some tuning that we've done to help to extend DRAM performance. And we had some conversations about this that actually, if you actually have higher speed memory equipped on your system, you can even extend this performance more, especially with the USB 3 boost technology. So we can take a look at that metric and see how that plays out too. So
that's interesting. So a higher memory frequency on the Z77 chipset will result in higher speed USB 3.0 performance through the Intel controller.
It's through the Intel controller, that's correct. So if we go ahead and take a look here. And here we have, right, the SCSI. So still both in turbo mode, but this one running at the default memory divider.
So the right-hand side is default memory speed.
Correct.
Okay.
And here we're running an overclocked DDR frequency. This one was 2400 overclocked memory frequency, as opposed to the native divider that's supported by Sandy.
So write speed sees a pretty significant performance jump, going from 350 megs a second to about 410.
410, correct. You still saw a little bit of an uptick in read, not as much, but in the write performance, it was a sizable increase. Definitely, if you were writing to your disk, it would be a noticeable
Even looking
change.
at like the smaller Q depths.
Yep. Smaller transfer sizes.
Smaller transfer sizes. You're going from 9.1 to 9.7 megs.
Yeah, and we can see if we're taking a look here in these areas, right? 97 versus 61, right? 158 versus 100, right? You're getting substantial increases. So normally, right, there's always kind of been that contemplation, well, why might it be justifiable to consider higher frequency memory? For this generation, with different things like this, potentially enhancing your USB 3 performance, as well as things like RAM caches, RAM disk, it's pretty cool.
Okay.
Any questions on that front? Okay. Let's go ahead and take a look at how it goes in comparison to AS Media with UASP, because there's going to be some differences there.
Okay.
Okay. So this one, we'll try to make it a little bit easier in terms of viewing it. So if we take a look at UASP performance, I'll tell you right off the bat, the AS Media controller is actually going to be underneath the Intel controller in terms of peak sequential. Okay. And that's more so just a key limitation of the effective PCIe lane that's connected, as opposed to the PCH.
The AS Media controller uses a by one PCI Express slot,
correct,
to communicate with the chipset.
Whereas the PCH is a direct link. So you have more efficiency, less overhead, so you get better performance. But keep in mind that the actual AS Media controller in UASP mode would operate faster than the Intel controller in its bot mode. So it's only the fact that we can actually even give you better performance with the turbo mode that we're really kind of giving you the best of both worlds, right? But here is where it gets interesting. So we have Intel on this side with actually two different storage devices that we run, because you're going to have different characteristics depending on the controller, the flash design, and the firmware. But we just want to show some variance here. So we've got Intel set up where we have turbo mode enabled, so the fastest mode of operation set up right here. And then we have the AS Media controller on this end. And you can see that when we have multiple queues, so you're accessing multiple files, read and writing multiple files, especially if you're working off the drive, doing things like that, the Intel controller, because it doesn't support that UASP, at least under Windows 7, right, you can see that there's a substantial difference, right? So here we can see we've got 53, we've got 140 versus. And
what would be 74. A use case where you have a queue depth, where you're not just doing quick sequential type stuff? Is that
workflow environments? So
if you have a 160 gig external SSD that you connect through USB 3, that you'd maybe do video editing off of, or
you're actually working off of that drive. You're actually writing multiple files to it. I know for me, sometimes I like to read and write and copy at the same time.
Sure.
If you've ever tried to do that to a flash drive, you notice it really drops down the performance.
Okay.
Because the bot protocol can't effectively try to manage that. And this even becomes more important later on in Windows 8, where I'm sure you've seen there's been changes to like the copy system.
Right.
That's a lot more flexible to like pause or prioritize or do things like that. So UASP is going to really be an advantage in that. Okay. So more so, it's really just about pick the controller and the performance mode that's going to work best for your usage model. So that gives you a little bit of idea relative to USB 3 Boost and how it works on Intel's controller and how it works on our add-in controller.
Okay.
Okay. Pretty straightforward there. Any questions that we've seen, Lenore?
I've been watching it. I haven't seen anything really specifically come up. People are saying good. Good use finally for the 2133 memory that they bought. So, they'll get some benefit out of it, which is true.
So I think next up, then let's take a look at iNetwork control.
Okay.
So we talked about essentially that we have now packet priority software, right? So we have this system right here set up with Wi-Fi, so it's connected to the internet, and we have a couple of different internet-enabled services, right? So we've got our web browser, we've got Windows Media Player, you've got iTunes, Hulu, Steam, a whole bunch of different clients, right? So all we'd have to do is, once again, we could go to Network iControl, okay? And
we maybe want to use the magnifier on this one?
Sure. Let's go ahead.
Just want to make sure. It doesn't stay up there. You can pin it to the taskbar maybe too. There we go. Just gotta be more gentle with the mouse. There we go. Okay.
So here you can see we're now in the interface for iNetwork control, and we've got two sections, one right here and one right here. And this is essentially just a live filter of all Netra-centric EXEs that the system is running. So if we went ahead and scrolled through them, right, we're going to see we have like Hulu Desktop, we have Internet Explorer, iTunes, Steam, Windows Media Player. They're all there. So let's say I did the majority of my system, the majority of my web browsing, the majority of internet usage is web browse based, right? Then you would want to maybe prioritize your web browser, right? So what you can go ahead and do is, let's say, you use Internet Explorer. You go ahead and just click on that. You click that button, and that will pop it up into this section, which now means it's an actively filtered or prioritized application.
Okay.
And from there, you're just going to essentially click this button to either low, high, or normal.
Okay.
And so at that point, then you would have prioritized packet priority for that application. And you can go ahead and set that up accordingly in different environments. If you're, let's say, a gamer instead, right, we could go ahead and go down to Steam, click on Steam, and bring Steam up. And we could go ahead and prioritize that.
Now, is that something we'd probably have to set it for each individual game inside Steam as well?
Actually, Steam has a front-end filter that works actually with the port protocols. So it actually will help.
Any game you start from Steam
should actually receive an actual a push through. Now, there are some that launch independently, and if they do, they would show up here. And if that's the case, then you would put that exactly. Okay. So it just depends on how they have the network client linked into the Steam engine. So that will vary. But overall, very straightforward, very easy to work with, no big complications. The last one that we'll see there is, once again, if we just add something back in, right? Maybe you're downloading a lot of files later in the day, you're maybe purchasing something, who knows, you can schedule. So we can go ahead and click this and then define a certain time to have that priority take over. So if maybe in the majority of your day you're doing web browsing, but then maybe at night you want to leave something downloading, go ahead and prioritize that.
And then you just want to change it before each and every time if you're going to do it regularly.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So that's a nice little feature that you have there.
Somebody asked what maybe a typical use case for these things would be for somebody with a cable modem.
It wouldn't matter what internet service you're utilizing. So it would be, if you're using fiber, if you're using cable, DSL, it doesn't really matter.
One of the things that I would say for in terms of cable versus other types of stuff, we've seen it a lot here, is if you saturate one direction of your bandwidth,
of course,
you lose performance in the other. So you might be able to adjust things with prioritizing that way.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So that gives you a little bit of perspective there on the iNetwork control.
And this will work with Intel and non-Intel network controllers?
Yes. So an example, like let's say on the Deluxe board, right, that has that feature. So it has a secondary NIC for Realtek. It could work on both the Realtek and it could work on the Intel controller. But this software has not yet been validated to work with the Wi-Fi GO implementation.
Gotcha.
So all the boards, right, got some form of Wi-Fi in terms of, standard, Pro, or Deluxe.
Right.
But that currently does not work with us.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and drop out of there. And no questions there.
No, I think we're good.
Same thing.
Doesn't affect ping at all. It's not. Well, I guess maybe
it could potentially.
Okay, if you put Steam at the top, in theory, your game ping time would be a little bit better. But.
Yes, that's correct. And as far as this specific implementation, we did work with the actual vendor and the actual NIC level. So this is a unique implementation to us relative to that question there. So let's take a look at the next one here, which is going to be our USB charger technology.
Okay. Yeah, we had a question from somebody in our own staff asking about this. Will it work when it's off?
Yeah.
Does it do the high-powered stuff?
So to first clarify, right, for you guys that aren't aware, right, the normal USB port only provides up to 500 milliamps. When we use a USB 3, we can potentially support up to 1500 milliamps. Disadvantage in terms of the way sometimes things work is that one, if you take advantage of advanced charging, depending on different S states, so different power states, your system might not be able to charge those.
Gotcha.
So like if you're in S3 or S5, some type of deep sleep or hibernation, or even the system being off, you couldn't effectively charge that. Oh, bump that.
Yeah, we've got connectors into connectors there.
So what we're going to show essentially is here I've got my phone. So this is just a Motorola Bionic. And we're going to go ahead and connect this because we've had this same technology for a while under AI Charger, but that's only been limited to Apple devices.
Now, where's that front panel or the back panel connector there, the Cube pad? So what I think is interesting about this is where we got here. Does this will indicate which ones... have that charge performance?
It's going to be this port right here, the green port.
Okay, so if we go, where am I at here? I lost track of that. So it'll be that green port there. same thing as a USB BIOS flashback.
Yep. So it's very
is that standard across all the boards? The BIOS flashback
port is going to be the
port
USB
will be
charge
the
port.
USB charge port.
Yep.
Okay.
So from there, all we're going to need to do is essentially we're just going to connect my device. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this on here. Try not to jostle this anymore.
Yeah, it's all right. It comes back. That's what's important.
And we'll go ahead and connect it here. So I'll go ahead and let you hold that guy there for a moment. And all we're going to need to do is we're just going to head over to the USB Charger Plus. And we can see it's actually already detected as another item. You can see here we actually have like this little scroll menu. Let me go ahead and magnify it for you guys, make it a little bit easier. So we've got things like Kindle, other ASUS, if it was like a Transformer or Apple device.
Okay.
You can go ahead and just select that. And then from there, oops, sorry, a little gentle. We're just going to go ahead and click on the charger button, which will enable the charge function. Okay. And at that point, if you wanted to execute real-time in the OS, you could do that, which we can see right now. Well, you might not be able to see it, but there's the little icon on my phone. It's already showing that it's actually charging. And we then have here, as you can see, an option that under sleep, hibernate, or shutdown. What do you want that device to charge, essentially?
Gotcha.
So we would then just go ahead and click apply. And at this point, we're essentially done. So I can go ahead and now shut down the system.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and shut it down.
So we're actually going to shut it down. It's all... We want to make sure he wants to make sure he's not lying to us. People want to know.
People want to know, and from there we're going to see that it's going to continue to charge.
So the system is off,
and you can still see that it's blinking there.
Yep.
The little lightning bolt, right? The charge indicator. So it's letting us to continue the charge process. And
so not just Apple devices, but
correct. Anything that meets the what's called BC 1.1 compliance standard, and that's a number of varied devices on the market. If you want to try to find out more specifically, then you can just, of course, look in your manual documentation. But we've tested, I think, close to about 50 different devices, and of varying types, and they've all worked.
Okay.
So pretty straightforward there.
All right.
So
let me leave this on charging, or
sure. It needs a little bit of a charge, so we'll just go ahead and leave it there.
Turn this back on.
Yep.
Now, so that's USB 3 boost, iNetwork control.
Yes.
The USB charger.
Yes, and so I think next up is one of the coolest ones. The one that it's the most outstanding is going to be Fan Xpert 2.
So that's why we have these fans more or less taped to our desk here.
Yes.
What you'll see is we've taped them so that when they start to spin, they don't fall over and cut off anybody's finger. We need to connect these to the
board, right?
We can go ahead and do that now?
Yeah, we can go ahead and connect it. And for you guys as reference, essentially, we're going to head and have 6 fans connected. So we've got 2 for the CPU cooler here, this Corsair H60 with 2 4-pin fans on the CPU headers. And then here we've got 3 fans that are 3-pin. And Ryan, was this new one also 3-pin?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is also taking advantage of the new fan control functionality for this generation where chassis headers 1 through 4 have both 3-pin and 4-pin support.
Gotcha.
Okay.
So there you go. 3 of them have lights, 1 of them does not, but you can clearly see when they're spinning and when they aren't. So
yeah, so I think we're going to be good here. Let me go ahead and move this aside so you guys can see that a little bit more clearly. Okay, cool. So what we're going to go ahead and show off is our Fan Xpert 2 software. And the big focus for us with this has been essentially that, one, when you go and you set up your system, right, you don't necessarily, for one, you could have a varied set of fans. And I think users want an easy way to effectively be able to control both the acoustic parameters of their system as well as the performance parameter in terms of cooling, right?
Now, it's something we've kind of had the capability and the ability to do for a while.
Yeah.
But it's always kind of been a pet peeve of mine to have to go in, set percentage-based numbers in the BIOS or UFEI, that kind of stuff.
But it's nice to at least have had those
It's
options
nice to have the option.
as opposed to just have the fan.
But the issue is, we talked about usability being so important, is like, even if you have the options, if they're not easy to access, if they're not easy to use and to understand, nobody's going to want to do it.
Right.
Or very few people are going to want to do it.
And I think that's part of the reason why we've had Fan Xpert for multiple generations, because you could very easily within the operating system pick the same presets. But for this generation, it's been about trying to take that usability much farther. So for the people that are familiar with our auto-tuning process on the overclocking front, this is going to be kind of similar. We have a fully automated process that what we're going to do is we've gone ahead and entered into this interface. So we can go ahead and, I guess, magnify it here. And you can see here, right, we have a button that's called fan auto tuning.
Okay.
So what we're going to do is just click this. And this is actually going to ramp all the fans up to 100%. So from this point, each one of these fan headers is going to independently be scaled down from a maximum rotation speed all the way down to their minimum rotation speed.
It's just got a little bit colder in here. Fans turned on, blowing on me also.
So we can hear that the fans are kind of actually revving down a little bit because they're actually slowing down in terms of their RPM rate. Now, this data is being real-time actually fed into the Super I/O controller, which is kind of doing this exchange with the software. And all this data is being cataloged. So we're having essentially interval parameters of RPM data for each one of these headers being stored. So we can see now at this point the LEDs, right, which are based on the RPM speed, are essentially starting to go down to a lower level. So this is giving us an indicator that we're approaching kind of that minimum parameter. So the next step would be, once this goes ahead and completes and stores all this data, go back to a moralized minimum preset. But the presets that we had, such as, let's say, silent or standard, are now going to be based off of this calibrated data that's from each one of these headers.
Gotcha.
So the cool part will be if, let's say, at the end, when I head over to full speed, if I were to go ahead and set that, they'll ramp up to the maximum, actually, what they know the full speed is going to be. But then if I was to switch to silent, which will show, they're actually going to stop rotating because it knows what the minimum operating value is.
As we have seen here.
Yeah. Okay. So that's going to be a cool part. And then we'll show, once we get past the next little portion, some of the flexibility that we have for naming the headers themselves. Because I know that, of course, I take the time in terms of trying to make sure that this back fan or this fan is connected to the right location, right? But a lot of time you just install stuff in there. You're just plugging stuff in there, right?
Look, there's an opening. I'll plug it in. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But that kind of sucks because you don't know to a degree where that header might be. And so at the end of this process, you're going to see we've now given you actually a new map that you can select the location of where that fan is positioned.
Gotcha.
So we're approaching here 100%. We're just finalizing on some of the last calibration data. We'll see.
So we got 3 of them that have turned off all the way. One waiting to get down to its minimum.
So we'll see. So 4-pin fans in the system are kind of not needed, as the RPM is to a degree. You could definitely use, like I said, 3-pin fans. I mean, I have a preference of 4-pin fans personally because I like the extra data that's supplied and having the board make an adjustment to that. But we wanted to make sure that we provided the flexibility to give you both 4-pin and 3-pin fan support. But like I noted, the 3-pin support is only for chassis fans 1 through 4 in terms of the headers, with the CPU and CPU optional being 4-pin support. Okay, so we're at 100% here. We're just going to wait for the next button to come up. Okay, so we can see there it ramped back up to essentially that minimum profile I was talking about.
Okay.
So this is the cool part right here. So we can see now it's asking us, hey, where do you have everything connected, right? So we know by default, right, we've plugged the CPU header into the CPU fan, right? But let's say chassis fan 1, we want to know where it is.
This is the coolest part to me. Go ahead.
Yeah, very cool. So let's go ahead and click search. And it's going to ask, okay, let me stop all the other fans and ramp that one. So we're going to go ahead and stop the other fans. And we can see that it looks like it's the black fan right here.
So this basically says we're going to lower the speed of all the other fans, turn one up so you know which one it is. Now you've located it in your case, in our case on the table.
Exactly.
And then you can go set it to
wherever it's located, regardless of that. Maybe that was for the chassis fan for the back, right? But maybe you actually had that as a front intake. Now I can set that as my front fan right here. That's really cool. And I could do the same thing. So next one over, right? Okay, I see where it's laid out.
Search that one.
Let's go ahead and search that one, and we can see that one lit up.
Benefit of the lights on the fans. Nice. We brought the ones with the lights. So now you've got, this is that one.
I know that's that one.
Good.
So great. I can go, okay, that's my front fan also. Here I can search that again. Oh, this one position probably makes sense. Maybe that's my back fan, right? So I can go ahead and set that as my back fan. And we'll say the last one is maybe, let's just say we've searched it and we apply that as our side fan.
Okay.
So now we have all that data set in. So the cool part from here is if we were to pick these different values, such as full speed, that knows exactly what the maximum is for every single one of these fans. And they're now all blowing at their maximum values. But let's say if we were then go to silent, you can see silent pretty much automatically at this point. It went on and cut them all off because it knows what their actual minimum values are.
Okay.
Which is very cool. So, and of course, this is all relative based on loading, right? So even though we've selected a silent profile, if the system were all of a sudden come under heavier load, the fans are kind of dynamically.
So these are just presets that you guys have built into the software, essentially.
But the data
based on
is
certain temperatures,
right? But the data is now, in terms of these adjustments,
matched to the specific fans in your system.
Exactly. And so from there, it extends further, so we can go into this advanced mode. And per each one of these headers, if we then wanted to go ahead and then adjust the fan curve itself, we could go in here and make these type of adjustments. We can even adjust, these are really cool. This is actually the ramping policy. So you can make an adjustment to the fan in terms of the aggressiveness at how fast it's going to ramp in its speed. The reason why you might do that is some fans have a characteristic of being more whiny or having a more kind of loud tone to them as you ramp up the speed. So, but the benefit is, of course, the more aggressive you have it speed up, the faster you're going to cool down the system.
Right.
But if you want your system to maintain the most quiet nature, then you probably want to keep the speed up all the way down. So it'll slowly, just very, very, very slowly ramp up, but it'll take much longer. The other option here would be an RPM fix mode, which you can see we're on that header, so that instantaneously we get a real-time feedback. It's working at the maximum value. But if I want to have those fixed at 1200 RPM, bam, that's already real-time adjustment.
So this graph is essentially saying run at 1200 RPM until we hit 75 degrees, and then go to full speed.
Yeah,
but you can adjust that.
Of course, that's adjustable. But this RPM fix mode is really good for like intake fans, where you might always want to keep a certain type of pressure flow within the chassis. Maybe you want to lock those in to always be 1000, right? You don't want to worry about them changing. And then on maybe your chassis fan, your back fan, and maybe your top fan, which kind of serves certain functions on bringing out or adjusting airflow, you can then adjust a fan curve.
Gotcha.
So the last part that we have here is if we go up to the top, right? This part's pretty cool here, where we can go chassis fan 1 and we can edit the name. So we can go ahead and say, if we wanted to call this, because it's our Antec, Tri-Cool, we could go ahead and call it that. Same thing like where I can go to my CPU.
And it even had the ability to search for it there again, if you weren't exactly sure which one it was.
Exactly. And I can then go same thing to my CPU fan, right? And I want to go ahead and I'm going to label that, Corsair H60. So now anytime you're making those adjustments, which fan it is and in relation to the position that it has. So I think it's a very, very advanced level of fan control that we're offering, but still has an overall easy level of usability attached to it. So pretty cool.
Now, when you make these settings and these changes in the Fan Xpert 2 software, does that can you still then adjust things in the UEFI?
You could, but they are delinked.
Okay.
Okay. So they are two independent systems, and the main reason why is that in the UEFI, only certain maximum values are achievable, not to the same extent as Windows. And the main reason being is that if we allowed for some too low levels, the fan might not initialize when the system posts. So in the past, we've had feedback from a user to say, "Oh, the fan isn't kicking on." And it's because the minimum value that's supplied is too low. So here in this environment, it's a little bit easier to ensure that you have those maximum ranges.
And I see some people in the comments, this enables you to save all this information.
Yeah.
Should you need to format your system, right?
Yeah, you can have actually a profile. Exactly. Okay. So it's very flexible. And if you wanted to have different profiles that you loaded dynamically, I don't know, one for, I guess, gaming and another one for something else, I generally kind of tweak it to my overall usage that I use my system for. But you've got a lot of flexibility there.
Somebody wants to know if it will overvolt the fan if you set it to.
We don't support that, predominantly from the fact that you could damage the fan, so we don't want to incorporate a feature that could potentially damage a product. We are looking into certain options at maybe having like an overvolt option, and I think that's just going to be us continuing to try to look at what our users are responding and asking of us.
Okay.
But I think that we're showing here we're definitely taking fan control seriously.
Okay.
Okay. So that gives you a bit of the breakdown there on the Fan Xpert 2.
And this, again, this feature, the USB 3 boost,
and
USB Charger Plus,
and then iNetwork control. Yeah, those are
all across all the
keyboards. Yeah, so you're looking at that. Even this high graded feature is on the standard board. So that entry level -V SKU has all of those functions. So I think we've got a couple other things that we're going to be looking at, like I think USB BIOS flashback. And that's also another consistent point that are on the boards, and we've got Wi-Fi GO.
Wi-Fi GO, is that a consistent?
For the boards that feature wireless implementation,
Gotcha.
they do have those natively. So Dash V, Pro, Deluxe, this upcoming board, the Dash I Deluxe, all of those all support the Wi-Fi Go implementation.
Okay. So if you guys have any questions for us, let us know. We are going to give away a handful of products now. Did we figure out a way to do it?
Oh, that's a good question.
What's
actually.
that?
A loser asked any mobile way to access this. As of right now, no. But that's actually a great thing to consider. Maybe adding that to our kind of a software suite that we're making available to mobile devices.
Is this version of Fan Xpert exclusive to the Z77, or will it be backwards compatible?
No, it's not backwards compatible from the fact this is actually new hardware. It's not just software. We have to have
a new controller.
Yeah, there's a new Super I/O controller. So it takes the custom I/O controller that we developed for X79, but then adds in some additional functionality.
Somebody said you could just VNC into your box, and that's just like mobile access.
Yeah. You're right. You got it, man.
Or you could remote desktop
yes.
through Wi-Fi Go.
Which there is an upcoming version that will allow for full internet connectivity.
Internet as well as intra.
As intranet, yeah.
Okay.
So that's a good point. So I guess let's go ahead and just give you guys a brief minute here, and then for a moment we'll just go through and kind of set a couple of things up here. But to give you guys a little bit of context on what you're doing here is, so this board is very similar to like our Deluxe. We've got Wi-Fi equipped on here. It's actually dual band, but we're going to be essentially doing a media stream directly from this system to this notebook. Now, this is different than just receiving. We're actually going to be taking the file and streaming out, choosing our actual receiver point, which is going to be, for instance, this netbook right here, and we're going to be showing that, and we could control it also from the desktop. You could imagine that you could do this also if, let's say, you had a DLNA-compliant television, or you had a receiver that had DLNA-compliant wireless pass-through that then would pass it also over to your TV. So very cool. You could take all that stuff that you have stored on your desktop and be able to shoot it out across your network.
Very cool.
So,
so are we going to try? We're going to get this on this camera, Ken. Is that what we want to try to do?
Yeah.
Or I mean, we can just pick it up and show it as well.
Yeah.
Rotate it around.
Yeah. No worries.
They're going to ask for, after we get done with this. They want to ask about that new Zono card that you gave away too.
Oh yeah.
That.
What was the model? Yes. There's going to actually be two. There's a couple of actually brand new Zonar cards that are coming out. We just launched our Zonar Essence 1, which I think you guys checked out at CES. It was really high-end USB DAC. That's awesome. We've got an upcoming Zonar Thunder FX. We have the Zonar Phoebus, which is the first ROG sound card that we're releasing. And then we also have the Zonar DGX and DSX.
Okay.
And those are very similar to the DX and to the DG that are very been on the market, except that they're PCIe versions with some slight updates.
Okay.
Yeah. Very cool. I like Scott. I love my audio, so it's very cool. Yes, PCI by 1. Yes, the sound cards are PCI by 1. Okay, so we're gone ahead and connected to our network here. Go ahead and turn on our netbook.
There are several aspects of Wi-Fi Go, though, correct?
Correct. Yeah, we'll actually show, we won't cover all of them, but if we were to actually go into the Wi-Fi Go suite, there's a lot of different functions that we have. We're going to predominantly just focus, I think, on a couple of quick ones, such as I think the DLNA Media Hub and the file transfer, I think, are pretty cool. But we do have some other functions that are also available. So definitely for you guys that are users out there, I'd love to really hear your feedback. Always feel free to definitely drop them. I definitely take actually time to take a look through the posted comments on Ryan's reviews for our products, as well as in the forums. But you guys can always head over to our Facebook and Twitter pages also and leave us comments there too, which I actively check out. So here we've got Wi-Fi Go.
I don't know what is causing that, but let's go ahead and use the magnifier too.
Oh, yep. Yeah, no problem. Get to the magnifier.
It's out here too.
Oh, right. Yeah. Sorry. Okay, so here we're at the desktop. We're going to go ahead and we've got our netbook here. Maybe I can turn it around once it's open there.
Yeah, I can.
Well, just set it in the middle of the table.
I might have to zoom that out though.
Yeah.
Well, it kind of works. We'll get the point across there. Oh, are you talking about the front shot or the overhead? Because we can do the overhead too.
No, just do the front shot.
Okay.
Okay, so we should be connected here to our network. So if I go ahead and go here to my Wi-Fi Go, I can go ahead and select my receiver, which it sees right here. This is my ASUS PC. So
Okay.
I'm just going to go ahead and select that.
So do you have to install some software on this?
No, because the receiver, as long as it has DNA compliance, it will see it as a DLNA device. So
Okay.
here, Windows Media Player has DNA compliance built into it.
Okay.
So the operating system inherently has it. So if you run Windows 7, even if you didn't install anything, you already have that built in.
Okay.
But let's say if you had like an Apple device, like a tablet, like an iPad, I guess, you would have to install our software that we make available in their App Store, because there's no built-in DLNA support in iOS. Same thing if you had like a transformer, you could do the same thing, but once again, there's no built-in DLNA into that OS, so you'd have to download our software. Okay, so we're just going to go ahead and select it. Once we select it, we could go ahead and let's say pick any one of the videos here. It's referencing our My Documents libraries. So we have music, we have video, and we have photos available to us.
Clonk wants to know if it's an issue that he lives in Australia.
You know what? Normally it would be, but I like you, Clonk, so I'm still going to go ahead and ship it all the way to Australia, just for you. So once we go ahead and select that, you can see that it shows the name of the files that we have selected here. And we've already gone ahead and picked our receiver, so we can go ahead and click play. It's going to go ahead and initiate the stream.
And we're using, you can use any router with this as long as it is DLNA, it supports DLNA pass-through?
That's correct, as long as it supports DLNA pass-through. So you can see right now, we're streaming this video.
This is a trailer for a movie JJ is very excited about.
Yeah, JJ is very excited about that. So we can see right here that it's now streaming real time, and we have control. So if actually, let's say I wanted to go ahead and make a volume adjustment right here, I can go ahead and make a volume adjustment.
Huh.
So you heard the volume actually go down, right? So we can make that adjustment. I can stop it. You can see it just stopped. And we've now stopped that. And we can even make it actually more interesting, where you can, if you install, let's say, the application to your phone, I can initiate the control from here to then my other device.
So from your phone, you can tell your computer to send a video to the laptop,
right, because,
or to a TV, or to whatever DLNA.
Because here I've got a big old, I don't have a huge amount of storage here. I've got this really nice high-speed run-core MSAT SSD, right? But on a normal system, I might have like a 2 terabyte hard drive, right? So I've got tons of storage. On my phone, it would be effective to keep all that stuff on here, but maybe I want to still initiate the control. One of the other items that we have right here on this screen interface, if we go back to the magnifier, is going to be file transfer, which is pretty cool. So let me see if I can go ahead and connect to this. But essentially what this allows you to do is normally, right, I think that when you've always wanted to kind of, let's say, transfer files to other devices in the past, right? Even through Bluetooth, you have to like pair a lot of things, or you have to connect a cable. Connecting a cable definitely isn't bad. It's fast, it's efficient, it works, but you've got to make sure a connection. With things being wireless, we've wanted to try to do things to make it a little bit more flexible. So what we now have the option to do is, if let's say we have a file that we want to send to a different device under the Wi-Fi GO suite, we can actually right click on it. And as long as you have that software installed on the device that with the software package, you can go ahead and go right-click Send To, and you can see here on the screen how it actually shows, like the last item I tried to do it with and sent files to was my Transformer Prime that I had connected. And so that's really nice because you don't actually have to do any type of pairing or any type of complicated setup. All you're going to have to do is essentially just have this be linked in terms of that, and then I could right-click this and send that file to it. So very simple. So it's a very nice option, you know, like if you have like a tablet or phone or something like that, and you don't want to have to go through the whole pairing or, syncing process, but you just want to send over maybe some new photos, some new music, some new videos. And all you have to do is just...
What technology is that feature using?
That feature is, it's based off of an underlying support in the wireless controller called Wi-Fi Direct. But since not all controllers support it, we're actually using some special protocol point-to-point transmission.
Okay.
So that is some ASUS secret sauce, let's say. The cool part is that with the software client actually installed on both systems, we can go back and forth. So I could actually just as easily right-click the file here and send to the desktop and go that way, or I can go the other way.
Now, somebody is asking in here, can you do that through the Ethernet ports? Like if you connect this PC directly to the wireless router, can you do the same functionality if you're not necessarily using the Wi-Fi of the Wi-Fi GO on the motherboard?
Oh, okay. I understand what you're saying. Yeah, not in the current software package. I think that in that type of situation that we're trying to enable, I guess, an ecosystem where the devices don't need to be required more so. Because if usually you're making a connection, you've already got that device connected to the network, right? But, that's definitely a good point and something that, I'm sure we can pass over to our team to think about, trying to add network-centric devices that are already physically connected as becoming a right-click send to option too.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. Any other questions that we got there?
I've kind of been watching them and hitting them up as we go, so I think we might be good there.
Cool.
So
I think that gives us, a cool little overview of some of the stuff that we're doing there.
That's, like I said, that's it's only part of it. We're going to go through some more stuff. We're going to do some overclocking. We're going to do some of the other connectivity options and things like that. Maybe talk a little bit about this board that we've not allowed to talk about live yet. But we want to thank everybody for joining in the live stream. We had a lot of fun. Sorry about the little delay we had in between, but it seems to have worked out pretty well. Yeah,
definitely. I'd like to thank everybody, too, for taking time.
Last thing, about the Zonar card we discussed.
Yeah.
Which one? They wanted just a little bit more detail on that. That was the DGX. You said it just came out.
Well, actually, both the DGX and the DSX literally just launched.
Okay.
Yeah, so there are updated versions of the current DG and the DG and the DX, but they're the PCIe versions of the cards instead of being PCI based. We've made an update to full 192K support for both of those.
Okay.
With an update to the ASIO driver of 2.2 compliance and some slight changes to some of the actual operating, the controllers on there, such as the DAC and the op-amp amplifier. So all improvements, though, definitely awesome cards, especially the DG, which is really kind of the proponent at value. A lot of people think to get much better quality, they have to buy like a much higher end sound card. DG, a lot of times you can get between like $20 or $30, and it's a really great investment. Cool. I think. Yeah.
There you go, guys. Everybody seems very thankful. They seem impressed with you, so congratulations on that. Thanks for hanging out with us all afternoon today. We had a lot of fun. We're going to do more of these types of events throughout the months to come, so make sure you check out pcper.com all the time. We've always going to have a schedule on the right-hand side of our site there. It shows you what upcoming events we have live. We always do our podcast live, always do This Week at Computer Hardware live, and we did a GTX 680 event with NVIDIA, we're doing Z77 event with ASUS, and we'll have more of this stuff planned in the not very distant future. So make sure you're always checking out PC Perspective for that. I want to thank you guys again for coming out. Thank JJ for your time and for giving away some cool stuff to everybody. Not everybody, but to some people.
Yeah, to the guys that were in the know.
Yeah, exactly. So we are going to cancel the stream from here. We might replay it. We might do something. I don't know. We'll see. But thank you guys again. And if you have any questions, you can email me directly, ryan@pcper.com. You can follow me on Twitter or you can look at our facebook.com/PCper page. There's all kinds of ways to get a hold of us. So thanks a lot, guys. And make sure you check out the upcoming Z77 reviews at PCper.com.
Definitely. Thank you again, guys.
Be sure to check out PCper.com for more reviews and information on everything PC hardware.